something to go with tonight's tuna steaks. Ginger. I've got one of Rachel's favorite ingredients to show off today. Some spectacular fresh tuna. Just the thing for a nice quiet dinner for two. And a great opportunity to try out some new flavor ideas. If lamb and duck are special occasion meats, then tuna is a special occasion fish. Now there's lots of different tunas out there. This one is known as aka-ahi in Japanese. That means red tuna. In English we call it yellowfin tuna. And because it's a member of the mackerel family, it's loaded with fat. Now, when I'm cooking tuna, my goal is not to overcook it. So what I like to do is cut it into nice, even shapes. And that way I'll be able to sear the outside and not get too much heat to the center. I actually want to leave the center raw. So the shape of the tuna before I cook it is very important. Here's what I do. I take the time to cut it into perfect cubes. Just trim off all those pieces on the end there and try and make it a nice, even shape. And that's what I like about all these scraps, because now I get to mince these up and make something raw with them. This is going to be a treat. The Japanese call raw fish in general sashimi, not sushi. Sushi has to have rice. Sashimi, and that's what I'm making here. But before I get to enjoy it, I'm going to have to clean up a little bit. I always keep one board just for my raw fish. And I'm obsessive about keeping my hands clean. I don't want any cross-contamination. I'm going to keep this nice and cold until I need it. Clean cutting board, clean knife. I'm ready to flavor that tuna. Tuna's flavor is so strong that it can handle strong flavors to season it. But I want the flavor of the tuna to shine through, so I'm not going to add too much of any particular strong flavor. Now, when I'm flavoring tuna, I always look to the Japanese for inspiration because they seem to appreciate raw tuna better than anybody else. They've mastered it for many, many, many years. I've got some soya sauce and a little bit of sesame oil. So the key is not to use too much of these flavors. Just a little bit of soya sauce and a little bit of toasted sesame oil. Just a few drops. This is one of the strongest flavors in my kitchen. A little bit goes a long way. Okay, now some color, some green onions. I think a little bit of lime zest as well. I want the lime juice to brighten the flavor of the tuna up, but I don't want the acidity of the lime juice to cook the tuna too much. Just a little bit. Let's see, what else can I add in there? Ginger. But again, not too much. Just enough ginger to add some heat to it. Now, something to balance all this even a little bit more. This may seem a little bit strange, but I think mint is going to work nicely here too. Oh, is that ever good? Ginger and mint, perfect flavor combination. Heat from the ginger, cooling from the mint, works perfectly. But you know, there is one thing missing here. A nice glass of red wine. Oh, a perfect match for the tuna. Rachel and I are looking forward to a nice quiet dinner tonight, alone. For me, it's an opportunity to play around with one of her favorite ingredients, rich, meaty tuna. I began by trimming the tuna into even steaks for even cooking. I minced the trimmings and tossed them with soya sauce, sesame oil, green onion, ginger, and mint. I'm definitely going to match ginger and mint together again. Now, another perfect accompaniment for tuna is leeks, my favorite kind of onion. Now I'm thinking about braising these today, so I'm not going to cut them up into tiny pieces. I'm just going to trim that root end off of each one, just like that. Then the next cut I'll make is right up here, right around where the white starts to turn into green. Cut them in half the long way. And by leaving that root end intact, it makes it really easy to get the water inside and rinse any dirt off or sand that might be stuck in between all these layers. And to brown the leeks, I'm going to use some butter. Mainly because there's a ton of flavor in butter. But there is one problem with butter. It tends to burn very quickly, especially at the temperatures that I need it to reach to brown the leeks. But there's an easy way to deal with that. Add roughly equal parts oil and butter. That way you sort of even out the butter and it won't burn, but you'll still get the flavor of it. And after a few minutes, when the leeks begin to brown on the bottom, they're ready to flip over and move on to the next step. It's time to add the liquids. And in this case, hey, I'm drinking Pinot Noir today. I'm cooking with Pinot Noir. This is going to be good. Now when you braise, you want to bring the level of liquid just to the top of whatever it is you're braising. I could put a little bit more liquid in there. More wine, some water, or some chicken broth. It might seem a little bit odd to serve something like chicken broth with fish, but it totally works, mainly because chicken broth is so neutral. Now, that's what's going underneath my tuna. Now I've got an idea for something that's going on top of my tuna. I usually keep ginger in the freezer because it's so much easier to grate frozen ginger than it is to grate room temperature ginger. You'll see what I mean in a second. This is going to be kind of a free-range salsa almost. The beautiful thing about frozen ginger is how well it grates. It just turns into powder, really. It mixes in so well with whatever you're using it in. I'm going to leave out all the other aromatics I put into that sashimi. Ginger and mint and very little else. The ginger and the mint, they totally balance each other. Cool mint, fiery ginger, the tomatoes and olive oil serving as an aromatic base. It does need something acidic though, just something to finish it off. Lemons will do the job nicely, but hey, preserved lemons, I forgot all about these. These are amazing. This is like lemon candy right here. This has been sitting in this jar for over a month, and all the bitterness of the whole lemons are long gone. All that's in here is salt, sugar, and lemons. Begin with a dozen or so lemons. Rinse well under warm water. Then make a series of deep slices into each lemon. Cram into a mason jar, layering with a heaping spoonful of salt and sugar for each lemon. Fill to the top with more lemon juice and refrigerate for at least a month, shaking occasionally every few days. Now, a little bit of preserved lemon goes a long way. I'll just mince it up, toss it in with those tomatoes.